Do it, Brad. You do it.
I'm Brad Hutchings, and we're waiting for another guest. And you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yeah, Chris Shimojima will be here in a minute. He's on his way in. You know how technology is; doesn't always cooperate when you want to cooperate. So we'll just talk a little bit here and catch up. Brad and I are buddies. We often do things together. And if you haven't seen Brad before, there's
You've
Brad
seen
right
him
there.
now. He matches his LinkedIn profile today. I'm wearing the
good.
same sweatshirt I wear in the LinkedIn profile.
Good. Yeah. Do you find much benefit from LinkedIn?
I am finding connection. How about that? And I'm finding people with like ideas. So if I would say I've been exploring the artificial intelligence idea space lately. And,
Yeah.
I come at it a little bit skeptically. More as a computer scientist than a cheerleader.
Yeah.
And I've certainly been able to find my tribe. The tribe is out there. If you're looking for your tribe, you're looking for like-minded individuals. That's great.
Yeah.
I've hooked up with your friend George, who does emergency management, emergency planning things.
Yeah.
And I found that just trying to understand his world and what he's doing, just following a few people and stuff, I can get a pretty good idea of how that market works, and it's very very interesting. So I think as far as that goes, like finding people and engaging with them and stuff like that is probably worth it. Are you going to find your next job doing that? I don't know.
Yeah, probably not. That's just me being skeptics of LinkedIn. Let's bring Chris in. Chris is in studio, so we'll do this. We'll do this, and we'll slide Chris over here. Chris, do me a favor. I'm going to point at the screen to say this is Chris Shimojima, and you're watching the Break It Down show. Are you ready?
Yep.
Boom.
This is Chris Shimojima, and you are watching the Break It Down show.
Better than ever. Awesome. I love it, man.
Better than mine. That's for sure.
I love. I can't. When you go to a party, what do you say you do?
I say I'm a filmmaker off the bat.
Okay.
That's my main thing. And then if they ask for more details, I go into day to day I work as a commercial director. I do a lot of video editing work for brands, all that kind of stuff. And then I have my passion projects. My own stories that I try to tell.
How many people are in that business? In the business right where you're at? Because I know a bunch of people that are in this stuff. They have a professional living making things on video. We're not talking just on YouTube. Nothing wrong with that. Not talking TikTok. We're talking people that get hired by somebody else to make their commercials or whatever it is. How many people, like if you were to say, I have 5,000 peers, like how many people do what you do? Because I don't think there's many. I just happen to know several of you.
No, actually there's tons. I mean, this is and it's just growing. It's constantly growing in size because of the democratization of the industry and the tools that are available to pretty much everyone now. But it's become a very competitive industry, specifically because it used to be just TV commercials, right? And then you had specific directors that would do that and work with different production companies that work with different agencies. And that's still to a large extent the model. But now you have to include social videos as well. And then you have a whole breadth of people who are jumping in that sphere. And you have a whole range of videos and types of content between those two things. So I can't count the number of people who actually do it for a living. And then there are people like me who dabble in different aspects of it. Some of them are just directors where they are only working on set. Others do the video editing part, along with me. Some people are cinematographers, so they are the ones that are behind the camera and making choices with the lenses and lighting. And then you have, people in all different fields doing it.
Brad?
What do you see your main strength as? Is it as a storyteller? Is it as a photographer? Is it as an editor? Is it as, coordinating the whole thing? Where do you see your strength?
I do think I'm pretty well-rounded, specifically because I've trained in a number of the things, and just being around and involved with different projects and different people over the years, I've gotten like my hands wet in different aspects of it. But I come from a background of, if you want to go all the way back, I grew up as a classical musician, so I have a really good sense of the music aspect of it in terms of hearing certain things and imagining how that can match with a specific part of a story, or or specific visuals. And really the thing that got me interested in filmmaking at first was that sensation that you get when you match a piece of music with a specific type of moving shot or a specific type of performance or whatever. That it just lifts your spirit up in a certain way that I can't really describe. Music videos do it to a certain extent, but I specifically like when it's done in the service of storytelling. And you have those moments where it can really help shape that arc of that story.
I just got done watching it's called The Killing Fields, and it's a Discovery program from 2016 or whatever, set in Louisiana. Okay. And of course, they've got like that Louisiana blues music underlying and all that stuff, setting up tension and, of course, kind of setting up the very dark mood of it as well. That's something I noticed. It was the music really did a lot in telling the story, because the story really for 2 seasons could have been written down in 3 paragraphs. There wasn't a lot going on, right? But the music with photography, really made that kind of special.
And then it gets really exciting when you sort of like mix it up, and then you wonder, okay, what if you do something that's a little bit anachronistic or something that's unusual to match it? And then you're like, whoa, wait a second. So that's part of the thing that I really like. And the other thing is I grew up sort of like I really interested in drawing comic books, and I was really interested in illustrating stuff for a while and drawing my own frames of storytelling. So I love that like progression of shots and how one thing leads to another. When I started doing my own video editing way back in high school with the programs that were available on the computer, there was just a certain kick that I got from experimenting with, having your own shots from the camera and then seeing what it's like when you jump from one shot to another. And Martin Scorsese would always talks about the power of editing in creating that. If you take 2 images, put them back to back, you create a third image in your eye. And that's always magic to me. Like if you jump from a wide shot to a close-up.
What time frame is back in high school? I'm just trying to set it technically with video editing.
So that was 2000 to 2004. I was in high school.
Wow, you had great calls.
Well, listen, it didn't work perfectly well back then.
Right.
So on the computer system, on the personal computers that we had, everything was chugging and everything was slow. Yeah. And like, not a ton of people were doing it. So, I was trying to get my hands on rips of the best high-tech products, but then it would never run properly on my system. It would keep crashing. I would be up until, because we had great opportunities where we could, in our Spanish classes specifically, they would always have projects where you would make a Spanish video. And that was like my favorite thing. But I would be up until like 3 or 4 a.m. because the computer would keep crashing. And I was like, no, I have to try to tell this the right way. And I have to try to get this thing to export the right way. That was
right, but it was cool because you could render it and then you could watch it. That was cool.
Yes.
So back in my day in high school, doing videos for French class in 1988, I have a Betamax and a VHS player and a Beta camera, and
well, we got it. Listen, we got our chance to work in that sort of format as well, because we had a TV production class at the time. So they were doing stuff off like tape as well.
Yeah.
And we were trying to go from shot to shot on tape.
And that, by the way, is not easy, because so my degree is in TV radio. When I would do the TV stuff I was doing, I'd go out and do my own editing for my own news stories. And you'd set an edit point, but it's not very accurate, and you're like, God, you might do the same edit 5 times to get a college kid grade news story. Right now, imagine if you are a pro having to, with those sloppy edit points. It was a lot of work. Yeah.
And it's interesting because you definitely look back, and when you look at older movies and stuff, you can tell like, okay, it's not that the style is more elementary, but you can tell like they can only do certain things in a specific way, right? And they have to rely on certain ways of doing it. And now like all that you can do, just like that. And it's just the range of tools and the speed of which you can do these things is, it's so fast.
I want to get into some of your more modern work instead of talking about your high school era work. Let's move forward in time. And you've got these passion projects. I'm working on a documentary. Actually, working on several documentaries right now. They're all in development, right? Not even in pre-production yet. And there's all these different problems you have to find, and you have people that have great capacity. You want to do your friends favors, but it's still timing, and it's always money. And so what do you think, like, what's the next level for you from where you're at, where you have more autonomy and you're less worried about the smaller things and you're more worried about, maybe you're already at this point. You're more like, no, these are the blocks, these are the time, I get to do this project here, and everything is within your power. It's really just up to you to assemble all the pieces.
Well, I will say that it is, and I have been doing it for some time and growing in different ways, but it is constantly a struggle. And the more I talk to other filmmakers and producers out there, they all feel the same way. So it's a big uncertain time for the industry in general, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be getting better anytime soon. I think the traditional way and hope, if you would ask me maybe 5 years ago when I still thought it was possible, is you would be able to get in with a literary manager or some sort of talent agent or manager to pretty much take you on and put your projects out there. And I've interacted with some in the past few years and made some steps with them. But overall, what I found is that there is not, they need a specific product to go out there now. And if you look at the industry at large, it's very much geared toward either, very genre safe, superhero movies or stuff like that, or TV shows where it's basically a commercial product. You have the entire backing of the studio. They already know what they want to make, and then they hire like a group of writers to kind of make the stuff for you. So there isn't that strength in independent filmmaking that there used to be if you had kind of entered into it 20 years ago. The industry has sort of really changed, and a lot of that is due to streaming. The streaming studios having a monopoly and controlling it almost like the old-fashioned film production studios of like the 40s and 50s, where it's less about the director's voice and more about the product and what product is going to get the most ad revenue on their streaming platform. That's the main concern, and it's really only getting worse. Now, compound that with the fact that there was a large strike that that happened last year. And even though like a lot of those demands were met, it didn't really affect independent filmmaking that much, but it affected the industry at large, and it becomes like this big spiraling effect. So you don't have people investing in the industry, at all, really. And what they were hoping is that, okay, now with these extra demands that came out of the strike, people would get more work and so forth, but that has not been the case. So if you look at all these people who were working in TV studios, at TV writers' rooms, and all that, they're really still struggling. It's just not, it's not cutting it. So there really is no step forward like that, and that's something that I was sort of starting to feel out 2 years ago when I was starting to try to get Safe Society made as a feature film, especially because it's a bit anti-establishment in the content. So it's not the kind of thing that you can go to like a Warner Brothers or Disney or whatever and say, hey, help me make this. That's tough enough for any independent project, but when you're doing stuff that kind of questions the mainstream narratives, that's even more difficult. The normal ways that you would be able to attach talent and get them on board and use that to kind of help fund your movie, but even that is unpredictable now. The sales market for talent is so uncertain. I've talked to so many producers that have attached like De Niro caliber actors onto their projects, and they still can't get funding. So that's sort of why I made the step to making Safe Society as an audio drama, because it was a way for me to have total control over it, over telling the story, using many of the same tools that I would in filmmaking. You still have casting, you still have performances, you still have sound design, you have mixing, you have music to tell the story, you still have editing, all those things. You just kind of lose the visual element, which is obviously a big part of it, but there is that aspect of the theater of the mind, which is also very exciting and was a new way to play it. But I do think that now I think we have to look for new ways to approach things. So what I'm trying to feel out is, okay, we have this world of AI that's really growing, and people are going crazy. What is it going to do to the industry? It's not helping people with their uncertainty, in terms of jobs. But there is what I do see a potential in it helping really change around the way we budget films and produce films, so that things could be done a lot a lot cheaper. And then if we still get the same funding or whatever, a lot of those funds could go toward hiring name talent or towards the marketing, and to those things that really actually help your film get out there. Spend less money on the production elements and then more money on the promotion of it. And I think that could in some way enliven the industry a little bit.
So are you talking about, basically making like previews and things? I mean, they've got, what do they have? The Sora project from OpenAI.
Yep.
I mean, there was actually
Yeah.
a music video made with it, but
Yep.
everybody I talked to who's a writer or whatever immediately thought, hey, we can do 10-second clips. I could put this movie together for somebody to see the prototype.
Yeah, well, there's definitely talk about that, and there are filmmakers who have really sort of gravitated to this world now, and they're just building their entire LinkedIn profile around this element. Like, we are AI specialists, right? Mm-hmm. It's an entirely new thing. So no one really knows like what they can use it for and what it can go toward. Promo work is definitely one kind of thing, like you suggested, and pre-visualization kind of stuff. Though we are also experimenting with how we could actually use it in the service of short films or longer form storytelling. It is a complicated thing because the technology is not totally there yet where you can completely get rid of an actor. I don't want to get rid of actors. I think they are the backbone to what makes a story human. So what I would love to see happen, and I'm trying to push Safe Society in that direction, is some sort of hybrid project where you are using live action, real performers, but you are splitting that with AI generated visuals for maybe heightened emotional moments or specific stylistic moments where it needs to look a little more stylized or animated or whatever.
How's that different than just CGI?
It's not. Well, it's not. I mean, that's why people shouldn't be scared of it, right? We've been doing this kind of thing forever. The only thing that's really different about it is that it moves like that, and you can have the computer do all those minuscule tasks that you would have to hire a huge animation team to do hour by hour, day by day, right? A computer can spit that out much more quickly. Now, that does open a lot more challenges because that computer is not, it's intelligent in certain ways, but not intelligent in other ways. So you have to constantly retell it to do different things over and rebuild the imagery over and over because it's not getting it right the first time. So it's really about tricking it to better understand what you want to happen. Right. But right now, you're the one in control of it over it. It's just a matter of having that assistant be that AI thing, and that teaching that assistant to do exactly what you want, which is the challenging thing right now.
Assistants, Brad, what do you think?
I'd like to go back to something you were talking about, which is the audio drama, actually, and not having it on video. And I'll tell you, people still drive in their cars. They still drive to work. They still drive on vacations. They still get on an airplane and, maybe, aren't going to watch a movie on a screen because it, might not be, appropriate to, have the visual with the person sitting next to you, something like that. There should definitely be an enduring market for just audio. And I think that's cool that you took your story that place, that it's not just an audio book. It's not just a podcast you load up, but this is a production story. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. Oh yeah. And that was sort of my approach with it because I do come from that film background and I wanted to really employ as many of those cinematic tools as possible to tell that story. So it is, it's heavy in the sound design. It's using a lot of those sound elements to tell the story. It is also approximating like certain scenic, you cut from one scene to another, or a montage approach that you would normally get in a film. I try to approximate that with audio as well. So there are a lot of things that it's doing that I was really excited to try to do in the audio world. And it's also unique in that I'm trying to do things that I wouldn't be able to do in the film world, right? So one of the things that a lot of audiobooks do, and some audio dramas do as well, is that they're a little bit more prose-like. So they have someone that's really, reading you the narration or telling you what's happening. So my audio drama sort of uses that element a little bit. It has a narrator, but that narrator is in the guise of like an NPR host or something like that, right? And over time, that as the episodes develop, that host becomes less and less of a reliable narrator, and you realize she is more of a biased figure for this side that I'm criticizing, and she becomes this almost demonic element as the story goes on. That's
I
trying to
love the
influence.
idea. So what's that? Go
Yeah,
into a
yeah.
little bit of what the side you're criticizing is, because that's interesting too.
Oh, sure. Well, it's
Pete,
definitely
switch us
like
up. Put him up front. Sorry,
So
a little direction there.
Yeah. It's, well, listen, I've always been a bit of an outsider. And because of that, you know, even as a kid, very aware of anything that feels like hive mentality to me and groupthink. Right. And just very like, I've always loved like, you know, satire or being able to laugh and poke fun at those things. So, over the past, I guess, 4 or 5 years, 4 years ago when you know COVID, you know, hit, I was like sort of in a sphere where I was not paying attention to anything politically. I was very much like, okay, I just want to do my own personal stories and just comment on things that are relevant, whatever that happens to be. And it just so happened that, you know, once COVID hit, I started to be aware of all these different narratives and pushes that started entering our lives that became unavoidable. Right. I could no longer like turn my back on it and say like, okay, I want to focus on my own things. Like this became where the cultural conversation was. And because I've always been someone that thinks that art should comment on the culture around us, on the contemporary culture, I was like, you know, there has to be a way to put my thoughts into that medium. Right. And it's not something that I feel that people are doing a lot of. I think it's definitely here in the media space, in the cultural commentary space, but no one is really doing it in the fiction community, let alone the filmmaking or audio drama world. You know, I think for, you know, many reasons, I guess they've sort of steered away from it. Or, I mean, I guess you could say it is an industry that's dominated by, you know, more progressive ideology. So it's like anyone that's pushing against it is, you know, they're going to generate a lot of criticism or a lot of heat in that way.
Let me give you an example I ran into today.
Sure.
I'm trying to write this story about how this push for AGI, which is, what is it? Artificial general intelligence, the holy grail of everything. And I thought, you know what? It's kind of like the manifest destiny, if you're aware of the from American history.
Yeah.
So I go and I look up manifest destiny for, you know, so I can put a link in the article, right? And every definition at the top of Google says that it was about white men conquering the continent. You couldn't be, you absolutely couldn't be more wrong. It was about American people spreading out. Yes, there were people in the way. Yes, we were terrible with them. Absolutely. But the thing is that there was space to be filled, and Americans with American ideas were going to fill those spaces. And the whole definition's lost. So I mean, I see where you're coming from with a lot of this. You know, just every day you could run into something like this. Absolutely,
totally.
It's hilarious.
Oh, and well, actually, it's interesting that you bring that up too, because you know my friend is actually he's really deep into the AI stuff, and he's developing a new sort of platform that is really going to be like an assistant editor for you, basically. And he's working on that with a lot of like top people. But he was telling me like, you know, what he really thinks this AI push is because, and you know, whether there's some truth or not, you know, to it, but it does make sense, is that they really use the opportunity for, you know, during lockdowns over the, you know, when lockdowns happened, they kind of used it as an opportunity to sort of kickstart this AI stuff. And that's why it's sort of happening and really jumping right now, because they wanted to really grow this AI thing, because in order for it to be eventually a government used thing, in order for people to sort of for your country to be the most powerful one. It's a race between countries, right? And right now the US is kind of on top of that, because they have all the people who are developing this stuff. And it is going to be used, you know, in some government capacity to be able to really, like, you could hit a switch and cause regime change in another country. That kind of a thing. I think that's what they're building toward, right?
Yeah.
So it is interesting when you think of it that way, in terms of
we talk about human in the middle, and human in the middle is what's going to keep the AI from you know, like destroying the world. Okay, in the doomer version of things. So you got to have a human in the middle. But what you see that they're really pushing for, they're all pushing for, regardless of, you know, where they sit on, you know, how terrible or good AI is they're really pushing for AI in the middle. And if AI is in the middle of every communication, every whatever, well, then you can insert this thing about, oh, you were thinking wrong about Manifest Destiny today, Brad. Obviously, you didn't consider
Yes.
the key point. Well, okay. I mean, Google does that pretty well already, but
Yeah.
imagine.
So what happens is AI becomes a tool for those in power who are
exactly.
pretty much whoever's programming it, right?
Exactly.
So if you have the wrong people programming it, or it just becomes another bias tool, speaking your your voice, and then it's purporting to tell you the truth, but it's really just
and it intermediates into everything. Like, I mean, the tech industry, it's funny, the tech industry has been about disintermediation for 40 years, or at the very worst, re-intermediation. It's like, take out the intermediary and put in the tech intermediary. And the tech intermediary was, a more benevolent dictator of an arranger of things, right? And now it's like, no, we're gonna put this AI in, and it's gonna have our values, it's gonna have a say in everything. I mean, can you imagine? I don't know if you saw the OpenAI demo with their.
Oh yeah,
with their,
I've seen all of them, and then they did the music video like you mentioned. Yeah,
the slutty assistant. Voice or whatever, and you just have a conversation and she chimes in, that's not a good idea. I'm like, shut up. You're not my kid. Go away.
It's a really scary thing for that reason you pointed out. And the thing is, it's unavoidable, right? So it's kind of like, it just adds to the sense that there is like a culture war going on. So it's like, how do you seize control of it before someone else seizes control of it, right? Yeah.
What's the space? What's the space for including more humanity in our creativity? It's great to have an AI assistant. I've got the thing on Adobe when I try to edit things, and I throw my coffee cup against the wall, and I'm like, God damn it, I'll just do it myself. but we'll hopefully get better at those things, right? But when I create things, I want real musicians playing real instruments as much as possible. I don't want there to be someone hitting a 9-button keypad to program sound. I want it to be real, even if it's expensive, because I want to make something that's wonderful, not something that is replicatable easily. Or it's like when on YouTube, my channel's all right. We do okay here, but there's certainly channels much larger than mine that have no human face at all and just perfectly aligned with the algorithm. That to me is a form of art, but it's not my form of art. So I'd rather have more humanity. Is there space for that in the creative space?
So I happen to be very hopeful and optimistic in that regards. Maybe because I'm looking at it personally, but I really believe that, we as people are always going to want to see that human element and that human interaction. And maybe it will get to the point. I don't think it's there yet, but I think it's years away where the artificial intelligence approximates that human component so perfectly that we won't be able to tell. But right now we're in that space where we want to see the people we know and the faces we know perform. I mean, that's the allure. That's always been the allure. So, even though we talk about like, okay, using AI tools, CG, whatever, AI enhancements, we still want to see Brad Pitt performing, right? So like, that's still the thing that sells, and there's no way we can get around it. There's so many filmmakers that are using this as a tool where, like I said, there's a growing community of like AI videos being churned out. And I look at it, it's interesting, but that stuff's never going to sell. And I think they know that. What's going to sell it is if you rope in the real talent and the real faces that we're familiar with. So in that way, it's the known actor, the known performer, the known musician that still has the value to draw in the sales. That's what I still think, and I think it's going to still be like that. Hopefully, no matter what.
And then within that realm, you were talking earlier about how culture is working in with these things, and AI is if it's programmed by a certain set of people, it will always be culturally dumb, right? It won't be able to adapt to the richness of. Everybody wants diversity until it gets uncomfortable, and then they're like, no, not if that's too much diversity. And so when you deal with things like culture and you have these different voices, and as I was listening to your program, I can hear you seeding the demonic element, right? Like there's certain words that we have in today's modern vernacular. Like if someone says in an abundance of caution, they're probably full of shit, at least if not, your bullshit meter should go off. You should be like, aha, something's being done here, right? And so when we look at AI and the uses of it, you create it yourself, use somebody else's, stick human. I mean, there's all these different, keep the human in the middle, as Brad said, another option. So I don't know. First off, how does your story relate to that? Because we want to get into that. By the way, everybody, we're talking to Chris Shimojima. Go down to his link over here. You can see everything he does. It's right down over there. And then his podcast is available all over the place. You just go to Safe Society World, and you'll find it, or just type Safe Society World in your whatever podcast machine of choice. So let me get out of the way after that long meandering kind of thought, but I'm curious what you think about those things. And here's what I want to know. Did you purposely seed some of that stuff where you talk about how someone is supposed to behave, heart first, capitalism bad? We have this idealistic idea about altruism, and it doesn't work in the real world.
No. Well, that's sort of a thing that I've been wrestling with, over the past several years. That's why I put it in. And, when you're an artist, and this is why I think like the progressives pretty much run the industry, is because when you're an artist, you naturally gravitate toward those lofty, big emotional sensations, right? And you want art to be this groundbreaking, barrier shattering kind of thing. That's always so artists are naturally idealistic. And what I always felt was the problem, especially, starting 4 years ago and seeing how many of those top name artists their minds were being hijacked, is that idealism can run rampant very easily. It's very easy to play people's emotions. And when your emotions get out of control, that's when you can be taken advantage of by the powers.
But isn't that also when you have your greatest artistic moments? Like your emotions are just completely on fire, and this might be where you get this insight.
Okay, so this is why I love film. Okay, because I think, and I love it, and I like music too, having a music background. But I think that music and maybe like painting are very irrational, right? They're meant to hit you directly in the emotional point. Like, you don't have to understand it; you just feel it, right? What I like about storytelling, and specifically film, is that there's a certain type of logical component to the brain that I feel the great films really tap into, not just in terms of like you having to structure a story beat by beat in order to create an arc or whatever, but I think the great films really try to communicate a specific type of message that hits the world for other people to digest. So it's not just an emotion; it's also a way to get you thinking about something. I think a lot of great films work like essays, where they start you off on one idea, and then through that process of the story, they introduce a twist to that idea to make you question it, and then hopefully by the end of it, take you in a different place or give you a new type of insight. So when I'm thinking through a story, I'm thinking through it in that type of lens, and that has sort of forced me to think very critically about things. So yes, I do think that we reach like that great art when we are kind of loose and free, and we can tap into that id inside of us, right? But I think film specifically is great when you can use it in a more rational way to communicate a rational point also.
Okay. Pete, go ahead.
All right. Hey, everybody, I'm Pete. So when we're messing with the art and where it needs to be, one of the things you need to be is out in front of the audience, right? And this is kind of what we're talking about. And so we do tend to move towards the American left with our art. And it's great to have artists that are left because, artists that are right kind of be brutal sometimes. That left leaning kind of thing is fine. But that means that there's artistic space to the right of that in Pete's artistic brain. Like if you take this tack and go the other direction, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't being spoken to. There's going to be a lot of people that are like, I haven't considered that. And in this new artistic form, like you're talking about, maybe I do need to be more, tolerant. For example, just starting off top of the list, could we all be more tolerant? The answer should always be yes. You don't want to tolerate things that are evil, but then again, you do. So you have to find out where that line is. So I guess, is being an artist right now maybe being more leaning to the political right, or just white politics completely out. I mean, there's some movies where I just can't even watch it. And I'm like, oh, I'm tired of this infomercial on, how I'm supposed to feel bad about myself. And I won't name the movies, but there's so many of them where I'm like, I'm not here for that. I'm here to have you take me away and put me on a journey and let me not think about other stuff for an hour and a half. And when you start to bring in the news into my ideology, I don't want an ideology. I just want to be entertained.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you have films like, that's why Tom Cruise's stuff has been kind of like, has been a hit over the years. And I mean, Top Gun was a great uniter in that way.
Yeah.
So, if you look at something like, if you're familiar with the Daily Wire and the kind of stuff that they're putting out, they've really started diving into feature films and long form stories. And some of the stuff, and I've spoken to them too about their intentions, but some of their stuff is very, it's like you said, like, they are a specific platform, they have a specific audience base, but they said, okay, we're going to nix the political stuff for this. And we're just going to do something that we want to make and is great. I think that's a great perspective, but I do think that the kind of stuff that they're putting out, maybe when they nixed the political aspect of it in some ways, it became a little bit too neutered. And you have this very genre flat element where they're not really trying to do anything aside from simply just churn out something, right?
Not to mention they're going to get more flack for it, right? I mean, if you're opposed to, say the agenda and you come at it, they're almost going to ignore you and hope everybody else just shuts their eyes, right?
Yep.
But if you kind of ignore the whole debate when the debate is there, that's the point, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you've
I don't want to bash them fully because they are making projects that do obviously tackle that, but they are still in a sphere of like, they're doing it in a very genre, like a simplified genre kind of world. So I mean, to answer your question, and it's interesting that you bring that up, Pete, because I was also speaking with Rumble about this, and I'm hoping that there's a way to build something with them, but I think there's room for both. And you want to do projects that are non-political, but still in some way comment on the culture at large. I think that's always important. You always want to comment on something that's relevant to people, because that, especially in today's world, that's really the stuff that stands out. I mean, it's so hard to make just something that is kind of timeless and location agnostic, because you're just going to get overrun by all the things that are more relevant, right? So that's always in the back of my mind when I'm trying to put something out there. Like, I think it's important that art finds its space where you can generate some sort of attention. And like I was saying earlier, it just so happens that culture war is really where it's at right now.
So without joining a silo, say like Daily Wire, or Rumble's less of a silo, Locals, the portion.
Wait, hold on. Let me just say, when you're
sure.
if you're Top Gun, right, and if you're Tom Cruise, you can totally afford to do that kind of thing, right? Because you have you have that built-in audience, and you go for the star, so they can do whatever they want. But I think for more independent creators, I think tapping into the culture is a good place to go.
So getting to the silos,
other,
like Daily Wire or Locals to a smaller extent as a subset of Rumble. Maybe you don't want to be associated with them and their brands, in particular, or tightly with their brands. But have you reached out or have you joined in any way other independent creators? I think of my friend Ted Balaker, who he and his wife created Coddling of the American Mind. Are you familiar with those kinds of people, and do you guys talk? Do you?
No, so it's been okay. So where I am, I'm sort of in the heart of New York City, right? So automatically, like, the people around me and the people I deal with on a day-to-day basis, first off, they're not really in the storytelling world. So I deal with a lot of people more in the advertising community, and when I'm making stuff, commercials and whatnot, we're building these like little short 30-second pieces where luckily no one over exaggerates the politics of it. We're not doing like a Disney commercial or like anything that's been overrun by this stuff, right? So we're doing like pretty pretty like normal stuff. Like no one would like criticize it in terms of that kind of stuff. So the crowd that I have has been that, and it's really just been in the past year with this project that I'm now really trying to reach out to those people like you mentioned. I did a show a couple of weeks ago where through that she has tried to connect me to one specific community that is doing a sort of crowdfunding platform for non-woke entertainment that's geared more towards like the 18 to 35 crowd, male crowd, stories that kind of resonate with them. So, so yes, to answer your question, I am starting to talk more with them, and I'm trying to find more people. I think it's a little bit difficult when you are talking about like long form storytelling, because most of those people are still gravitating more towards the news. So it's hard to find that middle ground where it's like, where are those people that want to do the kind of stories that I want to do and also want to tackle those news stories at the same time, in the same kind of.
I know a few people who are, sort of swimming upstream, if you will, in the media business, and they swim hard. And you ask them, okay, why do you keep swimming upstream? And the reason you keep swimming upstream, like for the metaphor, is that's how salmon and steelhead reproduce. Okay, I mean,
and they just have to do it. Like they just automatically do it.
That's what they do to reproduce. That's why we swim upstream is to reproduce, to put it mildly. That's why we do this. But it would be good to find your tribe, because there's everybody's finding out these little secrets, these little hacks that they can do to make this work. Because obviously, like making a film or making an audio drama or whatever else, having talent involved, having editing involved, having effects involved, music, as you said, music is not cheap. Having those things available to you, to work your magic with is expensive. Yep. And everybody comes up with their own little hacks. And, if there's, even if it's not so much geared toward funding, but if it's just geared toward, hey, you've got this guy I could borrow, I've got this guy you could borrow, kind of thing.
Yep.
Coming out of that
listen,
way.
If you know anyone to put me in touch with, like I would.
Yeah. Oh,
I'd love to. I'd love to speak to them.
I'll text Ted right after this with the URL. I mean, with the link to the video. But yeah,
that'd be great. No, it's tough. Like, because it's like, especially when you're kind of just figuring out a way to enter it, and you're cold emailing people or you're DMing people on X or Twitter or whatnot. It's like the response rate is so low. It's like how do you just break in to just kind of get those, because everyone's doing their own thing, right? So how do you get them to pay attention to you when they're kind of in their world as well? It's
social media wise. Do you work LinkedIn at all?
I'm on LinkedIn for sure. Yeah, it's.
Do you?
I go ahead.
I would say I've found lately it is a good way to find your tribe. Your tribe is probably there, right?
Yes,
and
like so I have found that, because one of the shows that I did, she posted a clip of it on there, and I have tried to reach people on there as well. The difficult thing is that I'm not a content creator per se, so I'm not churning out material like on that frequent of a basis. So it's very like, and I'm working day to day, so it's hard to like find that time to really get that material to engage people with, or enter those conversations with that material to engage them with. And that's the kind of thing that I just have to keep figuring out, because it's if you're a content creator and you're putting out like a new show every day, or like some new creation every day, you have that thing to kind of constantly like tap into, that you can kind of like build an audience with over time. But because I specifically work in the long form sphere, it's, my projects take like a year to get off the ground and do properly. That's the most difficult thing. And then to top it off, like I've just been so jaded by social media over the past like 2 years that I didn't post to Instagram for about like 2 years or so, or like a year and a half or whatever, because it just wasn't like it's like it becomes like too much of a, hey, I'm doing this, and then no one really.
Well, your social media voice is not your artistic voice. It's not your authentic voice. It is a social media voice tuned to clicks, likes, retweets, etc. It's a very different thing. But
it becomes so much of another job to me that it's like, oh my God, if I need to focus on the creation part of it, it's just so hard for me to balance that. And I was trying for like, there was a period from about 2014 to 2019 that I was like building my Instagram following like crazy. Like I was really on top of it. And now I'm like, maybe it was the lockdown effect where it's like everyone just became even more trapped in their own bubble. But now it's like, I don't know. Yeah.
I would say in general, I've completely abandoned LinkedIn. I'm just, I'm on there. You're welcome to reach out to me. But the best way is pete@breakitdownshow.com. Otherwise, it's not worth my time. It's not worth my effort. And I know Brad's finding some success there, and there are people that definitely do. But years I've tried to put into building something and having it be a place that would generate revenue for me. And it's just not that thing for me. If that changes, LinkedIn is glad to reach out to me and pitch me on why it's worth my time, but they're not going to, which kind of, and so the same thing with Instagram. And like I had been doing, I'm not going to do it this year, but I had been doing this cross-country motorcycle ride to support veterans. And I would go in there and I would, do my job and I try to raise the, the awareness of the thing and just, promote myself a little bit, but mostly promote the ride. And then Instagram would do all these adorable things like, oh, Pete, you're posting so many things. Keep it up. And I'm like, yeah, you don't put it in front of anybody, like I've grown zero, like for all the videos I've put out, and I've done this thing for a number of years and there's no traction there. So guess what? You're not a good business partner. Out the door you go, and so, yeah, sure. So like right now we're streaming live to Instagram. Hey, Instagram. But they don't help me like a business partner would, right? Yeah. Like if you went out to someone who funded your project, they're going to say, hey, what are you going to do to market this? You're like, well, we're going to use this money to market. You can explain how everybody works together for everybody's benefit. Instagram can't do that. X can't do that. LinkedIn can't do. None of these agencies can do that because they're focused on their own ability to gather an audience. They want you to bring your audience and grow it there so that they can turn that into their revenue. And then if they do give you a cut, it's not worth your time, right? So you're better off going out and meeting billionaires and say, who wants to fund badass projects? This is just me talking, but I think that's really what's more important. Yeah.
And what I found is that it's especially the case when, even if you can generate some sort of following or you get like a certain amount of likes or engagement on posts on social media, the amount of conversion to actually go from there to your other product.
Yeah.
If that's like a film or like an audio drama or it's really bad if it's long form story. That's like that is such a tiny percentage. Like I was so surprised. Like even it's difficult to get my friends to go watch my stuff. Like I can tell them like I can put a post up and maybe they'll like it, but to actually then get them to actually go listen to it, it's like I have to hound them for days to actually do it. So trying to get a stranger to do that is like, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah. The competition for time is insane. And I love all my friends. I have a lot of friends, but I stopped bugging them about my show. And so when they do talk, and gosh, I'm not talking about anybody specifically here because I've had dozens and dozens of these conversations. Someone will say something like, oh, are you still doing your show? And I'm like, yeah, 2,000 episodes. Isn't that incredible? And they're like, yeah, I try to listen whenever I can. And then they'll mention the last show they can think of, and it's like 5 years ago. And that's cool. That's cool. And it's fine because my show, I discover new people all the time. Right. And I don't worry about here's what I figured out. And maybe this will make sense to you, Chris, but I no longer use my show as a platform for me to be something more or to drive revenue directly. It for me is a networking tool. Now, maybe you and I are going to talk offline about a project that we want to do together, and I'll do some pre-development work so you don't have to do it. And then when we get the money together, when those people call to do the regular work, you'll be like, hang on, I've got a project and it's funded. I'll come back and we'll do something cool together. Right? Like that's what my show has become. I get to meet all these incredible authors or people that have done incredible things, and I can connect them to you. If they like, hey, I want to make a documentary, let me get you to Chris. And so that's what it's become for me, is this magical networking machine that creates opportunity and it creates connections. I got Brad in here talking because Brad knows a lot about AI, and I want to see Brad do well. And if Brad and you can talk and do business, great. If someone else hears Brad talk about how he's a computer scientist and is brilliant about AI, man, maybe he'll make some money. That's what my show has become. Instead of something about me and what shirt I'm wearing and how do I look in this blouse, it's more about people, humans making things. And yes, we're going to use computers to help us do that, but I'm really going to hire a blower to get on the trumpet and play that thing, because you can't do what Chet Atkins did, like on a beep, beep, beep on a machine. It just doesn't happen.
Look, when I recorded my first song, like did it seriously, and Believe me, 8 years ago, I could turn the CD player up to 11. This was my capability with music. And I actually recorded a song. And I used a drum software. I even forget what it's called right now. It's sitting on my taskbar somewhere. But I then I then took that prototype and sent it to my friend Brian from the Cold Stairs and said, dude, give you $100 to give me a better drum track. He's all, well, this sounds great already. I'm all, no, it doesn't sound great. It sounds mechanical. Even I can tell. I know nothing about music, and even I can tell. And he did, I sorted it out for him, probably better than anybody who's asked him to do a random drum thing is done. In fact, he told me that, I told him what I needed, where I needed it and stuff. He filled it in, and it was amazing. And I absolutely loved the song for the drums. Because my guitar playing is garbage.
That's great.
But, it's you're not going to you're definitely not going to replace that yet. You're not going to replace that feel. Even when you're not jamming together, and that's like a whole nother level, right? But when you can play to another human being playing and just kind of even if they're on tape, amazing.
So what my hope is that I hope that AI can take over those lower kind of tasks, right?
Yeah.
Or those lower kind of gigs where it's like, okay, this company just needs a quick little video and then maybe a quick drum beat under there. It can take care of those things so that the real human artists can really focus on the things that they want to do a lot more, right? Or new specific opportunities open up, or new types of jobs open up for the humans to be able to do. That's where I think the power of it.
Right. Or it takes things that you wouldn't spend money on to begin with. If it would cost you $10,000 to produce this thing, but with an AI tool or another automated tool, you could do it for $100. You could do it for $10. You can see it with the proliferation of memes and artwork that's done with Dolly, right? That's not replacing anybody. That's not replacing anybody's job. It's an opportunity for people to do these things. And you know what? People pretty much burn out after a while. They see it has this blue tinge. The futuristic thing is ridiculous. They don't want to see any more robots, and they're done with it. And, they're on to steal, they're back to stealing pictures, from the internet or whatever for their illustration.
Well, there is also an opportunity though, if you yourself, if the artist really becomes immersed in that technology and becomes becomes one of those people who uses it and can get gigs to kind of use that technology, right? Because then you could almost make money, being the programmer for that stuff, and churning out stuff, just churning out the small stuff as your kind of side hustle, and then you can do the other stuff you really want to do, with the rest of your time.
DJing is a thing, right? And it's about the energy you're driving in people. It's about setting a vibe. There's no AI that's ever going to drive energy or set a vibe. It's just not going to happen until we're at, basically cloning human brains.
Right. Exactly.
No digital thing is going to understand that.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's cool.
I want to ask about this, Chris, because when we see credits now, man, they're 20 minutes long, right? And awesome, legitimately so. And so we always think that we're going to take people out of the machine, but it seems like we're hey, we're going to save energy. We're going to run off batteries and all the kind of stuff. And yet, who's using less energy than they were 10 years ago? Everybody's using exponentially more. So that line is going to continue to go up. And we don't think about what structure it takes to power. If we triple the power, consumption here at my house, I don't know where it's going to come from. It's crazy. And then couple that with making movies. You can't make a movie like what John Wayne was in His Private Secretary. There were 19 people probably in the credits. It's him, it's Evelyn Knapp, it's whoever edited it, whoever wrote it, some guy named Dave who did stunts. And so the credits are da 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 over. That's not the case. And so if we have AI, are we going to see less people working in film, or are we just going to find more jobs for more people to do? Because good God, man, you take.
I think it's both.
Film.
Well, I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it may shorten that credit list. Listen, when I made my independent film, it did not have that same huge list as Hollywood productions use, because there's just not the same amount of visual effects. I think what they are hoping that it will cull down on the number of people working on one specific project. But I think, to your point, that just means that there are going to be more projects possible. So whether you use those people on one project or you space them out onto multiple projects, it's gonna still grow.
Yeah. I mean, you have got great sound in your podcast. Everybody should go listen to it. Here's the link for it right here. You can just go to safesociety.world. Yeah, go there, check it out. You'll instantly hear that this thing is designed not only for like big room speakers, but also headphones. And that kind of work is deliberate, delicate. It takes time, and you just cannot rush it. And it's obviously you care about that. Another guy's been on the show, same kind of thing. He built an audio drama. He's a sound guy for it. He makes the sounds for Hans Zimmer. And so Hans is like, I don't know, make me some harps. He makes all of the harps, right?
That's
and, it is a lot of work. And we're just talking sound. I mean, post-production on sound is massive. Forget about the video part. So can we get that human touch, do you think, that's required to go, not second by second, but millisecond by millisecond through something to clean and improve?
Listen, I think we were talking about, okay, what's possible, like, 100 years down the road, who knows, like 100 years down the road. Yeah. Right now, obviously not. And I think it's also kind of about intention, right? If you're an independent creator and you want to make stuff, you're going to want to have that kind of control, and you're going to know like what it is you want to say at a specific moment, or what you want to do and what you want to achieve. So you're going to be that creative in charge of it no matter what. Like, for example, when I made the trailer for Safe Society, I made a visual trailer and an audio trailer. I very well could have like plugged in a script into ChatGPT, but that would have been so far removed from what I already had in my mind as to what I wanted to say and what I wanted to achieve beat by beat and the visuals that I want to show. So what's great about actually working through it yourself is that you get a better understanding of your own story and what it is you're trying to express. So I think any creator, an independent creator, is hopefully going to feel the same way, in that they want to be the one controlling those aspects.
So how do you feel about AI providing you just generally more branches and more options to explore? I mean, that's what large language models are good for. I mean, I wrote a little essay about this the other day, but you think of them as super lossy compressors. Like, we can take the whole internet and we can compress it down like this small. This small is like a data center, right? And then what we can do is we can kind of reconstruct things, but we can't reconstruct what was actually there. We reconstruct, it might be this, it might be that, it might be this. Have it tell you a story with a theme 10 times. It'll tell you 10 different stories, right? So how do you feel about sort of using that for things, that you're playing with? You could edit it, you could edit the sounds this direction yourself, or you could say, hey, give me 10 options here that I could listen to and I could sort of hear what might happen, and now I can go and adapt and edit it the way I want.
So I kind of feel like, again, like I was saying before, if you are like a creator or whatever who's going to a certain project because they already know what they're trying to achieve and what they want to say, I still feel like I love relying on myself to kind of figure that out. It's almost like that's part of the process. Is what's enjoying. Is what's the enjoyment is, right? So yes, like I think like, and I haven't done this yet, but you could use like ChatGPT or whatever to help you just in those specific early stages, like come up with like, okay, your script could go this way, your script could go that way, or it could go this way. I do feel like that's useful for certain tasks, but I haven't yet come across a need for it in my specific projects, because I almost come from a reverse direction where it's like, I'm not going to go to a project unless I already have that specific through line going on in my head. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Hey, I just we should wrap this up. We're about at an hour here, and I don't want to take too much of your time, Chris, but I really have enjoyed chatting with you, and getting to see you and Brad go back and forth was really fun, and I can't wait to hear. Everybody should go check all of Chris's projects. You can just go to his website. I'll put the link up here. It's hisname.com. Super simple. There you go. So if you want to go check it out. And then the podcast, once again, it's at safesociety.world. Again, on all the big platforms, no worries there. And I think I haven't gotten too far through it, but what I've heard is great. And the sound, And this, if you're going to do audio drama, the sound's got to be good, and your sound is good. So that's an educated ear telling you that too. So I appreciate you coming on the show, Brad. I appreciate you for jumping in and talking this stuff with me. I'm going to let Brad go next, and we'll let you close out, Chris. Brad.
Yeah. So Chris, it was absolutely a pleasure meeting you. I love the direction you're going and stuff. I heard about you an hour and 45 minutes ago. And then I had to make my hair like not be, too crazy and stuff.
Mine's still crazy. It's fine. It's all good.
Now, yeah, you got like good crazy. I've got like 53-year-old have to keep it under control crazy. I haven't had time to listen or whatever, but I'm intrigued, and I'm going to go there right after the show because I want to know more. So
I appreciate it.
I hope this has been a good rep for you, as Pete likes to say.
This is great, guys. Thank you for putting it together and having me on for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to roll these credits unless you have anything else to say, Chris. Otherwise, stand by.
All good. Just
hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much.